Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the Allegheny Northern in N scale, and today we're doing a product review of the MicroTrains Norfolk Southern Ribbon Rail. And you know, if you like it, you got to get it in pretty much every color, and for trains it's in every pack that they make. So we have the complete set here that has been released. It's 3-pack number 1, 3-pack number 2, and of course the center cars, which is a 2-pack that just came out here for the month of August. And that's your manufacturer suggested retail price. I can tell you that's not what I paid. So search around, you're going to find deals much better than that online. So let's talk about the cars first, and then we'll talk about the actual. Okay, if you drift over to railpictures.net, you will find plenty of pictures of these cars. There's the end car. They did not make that. That's the car that actually puts the rail down onto the ground, so that the tie gang can come and put the rails in. So that is going to probably be a scratch build project here, just hinting at that. But that's basically what the train looks like. So it's got these orange sides, and then the rail sits in between. Okay, so let's open the bunk cars here. They are the center of the train. They would not be on the ends as you would think, and of course, you know, this is probably a lot easier with 2 hands, but we're going to fake it till we make it here. So when you open this up, you do get your set of instructions. Tells you the order where your train should be placed, and then it shows you the parts that you've got inside. And for our set here, you have 3D printed pieces to make up the racks that hold the rail in place. And then you have the larger end bunks. Now, according to this, we do need to do some cleaning and some cutting of pieces to get that all to fit correctly. So we'll be doing that here shortly. And then, of course, you get the Norfolk Southern maintenance away cars. Let me take that out of the jewel box here so you can actually see it. And all of these cars are going to be the same. They are already pre-weathered, which is really nice. So you don't have to weather it too much more to get it to an acceptable spot. Already has the, as you can see here, if it will focus for me, it will not. So we're going to just pull back here a little bit. It's already got the reflective striping on it, which is cool. Of course, you've got the MicroTrains trucks and couplers, so that's a win for me. You know I like my MicroTrain stuff. And then brake wheel details, etc. So, real nice, out of the box, flat car. There we go, got the focus. You can see you've got this typical detail there that you would expect from MicroTrains. And then you've got some added detail that is, you know, part of this particular car. But in general, nicely done here. And all of these cars, so all of these flat cars, I know, don't laugh. All of these cars are pretty much the same. So essentially what I got is, you know, 8 flat cars and some 3D printed pieces. So if you want to make it really simple, that's what's in the kit. And let's go ahead and open up some of the 3-packs here. Okay, the struggle's not quite as real on the 3-packs because the box just opens like a bookcase, book set here. So once you go ahead and pull that out, you'll find the instructions, which are exactly the same, are inside. And then you've got your 3 cars. Once again, they are weathered, same level of detail, and then you have the standard bunks here for the cars. And there are instructions to tell you how to clip this off. You don't want to damage any of the parts that are 3D printed, and obviously we're going to need to do that. So first thing I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to get these painted, primed and painted. So I don't want to take them off these sprues until I'm ready to do that, just because I think it'll be a little bit easier to hold them in place while they've got that big tub on the bottom. And that, just since I've opened 2 of the 3 boxes, I might as well open the third. to show you, hey, surprise, set of instructions. And here's another 3 cars. Now, I am not aware of, I knew these were coming out, but I was not aware of anything as far as the end car. So I don't know if that's something that's going to be made or if that's something that is already available for 3D print. Need to do some investigation on that, but this is welded rail is pretty much the way of the railroad now, and it's cool to be able to have these in N scale. So I was excited when I saw them. Obviously, just a little bit. Okay, so our next step, I guess, is going to be to start assembling the rail bunks here, and you know, my original thought was to leave them on this plastic frame for ease of handling and for painting. And the more I thought about that, the more I realized that's just not going to work. So it's too, you're not going to get a good paint coverage because this ridge is just too big. So we are actually going to follow the manufacturer's instructions, and that is to cut these bunks free. Now the nice thing is that they did make it so that the width of the car is not the direction you're cutting. So that gives you a little bit of leeway to basically overcut here on the edge and leave yourself a little bit of flashing so that you can trim it clean later, which actually is pretty nice. And it says you can remove these with a knife, and as I'm looking at it, I think that's going to be the only way to do it, because you're not going to get a sprue cutter in there. It's just too much going on. So let's see if we can remove this. And it's a number 11 blade, and let's see if I can sort of chip this out of here. Let's see. You know, the resin they used is actually a pretty decent resin, and it's going to take a little bit of pressure to cut it. So I would cut wide as close to the frame as you can, and then come back in here and trim it up once you get the piece removed, because it's a bit of a challenge. Let me try something here that's probably not knife safety at all. Yeah, I don't like doing that. That's gonna get me a cut finger. So let's see here. There may be a better tool out there for this, but just where they've got this thing in this giant ridge, it's not the most convenient design for removing it. So just be very, very careful when you do that. And I know you guys can't see it overhead, but there's nothing really to see unless you've never seen a knife cut plastic before. So, but I've got those marks scored right on the edge there, and it's taking a little bit of pressure on the knife. So just be careful. I'm cutting as close to the frame as I can so that I can get back in there and trim it up later. And we're gonna have to do this quite a few times here. So if I come up with a better way to remove these little guys, I will definitely let you know. But being very careful not to damage the piece. And they've also got the plate is also stuck on here, and I'm not exactly sure. You know, that plate does not look like it's part of the model, so we can just go ahead and pull that right off. And it is actually pretty thick too, so I'm going to score it and see if I can just snap it. So while I do definitely appreciate that the plastic is a good quality plastic, that really makes it a pain in the butt to get out of here. So, and I say plastic, it's a resin, but you get what I'm going at. Yeah, you're definitely going to have to score that, cut it a little bit. It's not going to break free. So this is not something you're going to hand off to a young modeler to try to do, but once you get it free, it's going to look something like that. So you're going to need to clean it up a little bit. This plate is not part of the model, so you're going to need to cut that or break that free. Be very careful you don't break the bottom bunk here. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it. Nah, it's going to need cut too. So you're going to have to be very careful. I might try to get the sprue cutters in there for that. See if we can chip that out a little bit. and then just clean it up with the knife. I think it's going to be the easiest way to do that. So yeah, that's a lot better. So if you can grab a hold of that, you can pretty much break that right off. And watch out for those flying pieces because they will come back at you. It's easy enough. Now, the next step is there are some small supports, and I'm going to try to get this thing to focus on here, but if you take a look at this and you see how there's this little plastic piece right above the thicker piece, and so you can see that this one's missing. It broke off in the process, but all these little tiny pieces we got to remove. Now I'm definitely going to use a knife for that because I don't think there's going to be any problem, snapping those off. But yeah, they pop right off. So get yourself a sharp blade, and then just take those little pieces off, and you'll have a nice clean look there. And you've got to do it on every one of these. So if you could just take a look right there and see that there's a bunch of them. They snap off fast, so it's not a big deal. But I'm going to go ahead and snap those off, and then I'm going to clean up these edges here just so that they're ready for paint and being put on the model. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, once the parts are all cleaned up, and they do clean up nice, I will tell you that when I was removing those bottom plates from a couple of them, that obviously that was not supposed to be attached. We did get some breakage on the bottom piece, but with the resin, it fits just like it fits right back in the way it broke. So you can glue them right back in place and pretty much hides on any damage. So I had 3 plates that stuck to the bottom of the bunker, and in trying to remove them with the knife as carefully as I could, I broke all 3 bottom bunks. So just a heads up, that's going to happen. If you can find a way to remove it that doesn't involve that, all power to you. So the next step in our handy instructions here is that we are going to prime the parts a light color. We are using Vallejo surface primer. It is a white 73.600. I've got that mixed and primed into the airbrush, and I've added a little bit of the firm's airbrush flow improver, just because I put quite a bit of paint in there, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any issues with the. Whoop, you gotta move all your parts that you're not working on out of the way, otherwise they're gonna go flying. So I've got the pressure set at about 30, and so when I'm using the airbrush consistently, I usually get about a sustained 28 psi. It's a very small tank on this brush, so that ends up being about what I need. And just want to get a nice coating on here, basically trying to give the paint something to bite to. Now they are recommending an orange for these because that's what Norfolk Southern rail bunks are. They are saying that there's either an NS orange, which I don't know what that is, or there's also a reefer orange that's pretty close. I think I have the reefer orange color, but I've also got a handful of other oranges that I'm going to use, and based on the fact that we've got to weather these things as well, I'm going to try to determine which of those oranges I want to use. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, that is unfortunate for you because that makes this a lot easier, and you really do want thin coats of paint that you can kind of get with a brush, but man, it's just a lot more work. So if you don't have an airbrush, your step here would look a lot more tedious because you can't just go in and slap paint in there, because if you do that, you're going to hide some of the detail, and it's just going to look globby, and you don't want that. You want more of a nice, controlled, light coat. We've let this dry overnight, so this is our primer coat, and that's going to give our paint some tooth to bite to, plus give us a more even-toned start, right? So I'm going to begin with Vallejo Air. This is Light Rust, number 71.129, and I'm going to follow that up with orange rust, and that is 71.130. And I'm trying to think here. So I tried to color match, and in between these two colors, which they look very close. This seems to be the closest match to what the kit is recommending here, which is a reefer orange, or if you can find something, it's actually called NS-MO orange. I don't know what that is, but and if it's not orange enough, I've got a clear paint here that I'll explain in a minute if I need to use it, but it's just clear orange, 70.956. So this is a maybe in case we have an issue. But I'm going to start with the darker. So I'm starting with the light rust, and we're gonna give this stuff a coat in the light rust first. So we're just following basic airbrushing techniques here. Just want to get a nice even coat, and want to make sure we coat all the sides. You do have ridges on this thing, so it's a little bit. Make sure you don't miss any areas, like where your tweezers are at. But we just want to give it a nice coat, sort of get it going here. Once again, I haven't changed any settings on my airbrush, so I've got this particular compressor set for about 30, so it will maintain about 28 when you can hear it running in the background there. And I'm a nice distance away. I'm not really putting down a whole lot of paint because I don't want it to blotch up on me. So dual action airbrush here, and I'm just kind of, I hate to say seasoning the taste here, but I'm just watching the paint flow out, and I'm giving it what I think I need to get a nice light coating on here. Don't forget, we are going to go multiple coats, so get it coated, but don't slap it on. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to detail the rest of these here with the paint for the light rust, and then we're going to come back with the orange rust here in a second. I'll show you that step. Okay, so I don't know that the camera is picking this up very well, and there wasn't much I could do with the lighting to make it to show better. But the one on the left here, the bunker on the left, this has a coat of the light rust followed by a coat of the orange rust. And then the one on the right, which is giving a much smoother, kind of an oranger appearance, has the clear orange, heavily thinned, but just enough to bring out the orangeness, for lack of a better way to say it. And so that sort of is how I got this color. It's a rusty orange color, which matches what the prototype looks like. I think you could probably make it oranger if you wanted to, based on some of the pictures of these cars are really orange. So I think you could probably do that and get away with it. But because we're going to eventually weather this and make it look like it's been in service for a while, I don't know that I want to do that. So at this point in time, I think the combination of these three colors is what I want, and I'm going to leave it that way. Now, because I was using an airbrush, I could control how much of the under layers of paint shone through just by how much paint I was putting out, and the main color was that light rust. The orange rust and the clear orange basically were filler colors to kind of smooth everything out and bring out the orange, that orangeness I was talking about. If you're painting this by brush and not airbrush, a couple of words of caution. One, even with the airbrush, there's a lot of pieces to this. So you've got to really flip these things around, and you've got to get all the sides and the underside. Don't forget, this is not a static model, so it's going to be on your layout. It's going to be running around, and visitors are going to be able to view it from pretty much all the sides. So if you miss paint somewhere, it's going to be noticeable. So take your time. Make sure you don't miss any paint. If you're using the brush, like I said, then you also need to make sure that you're not globbing the layers on so thick that you're hiding the details and the ribs and all these different pieces. Otherwise, it's not going to look right either, and the gloppy paint's going to look just bad. So be very careful. You may want to even thin your paints a little bit and build it up in thin layers if you're going to use a standard brush. If you're using an airbrush, then it's a lot easier. You still got to just make sure you rotate your pieces and get everything covered. But That's the color, the colors that I've used. That's the technique that I've used to get us here. And I'm looking at the screen right now. At least on the phone, it looks like they're the same color. But trust me, this one right here has an extra layer of orange on it, so it's a little more orange. Okay, so now that we've got our pieces painted, you've got a decision to make as the modeler, and that decision is: are you going to glue these pieces in place, or are you going to do something more temporary? And that choice is completely up to you. They recommend that you can glue it with a super glue, and that's what I'm going to do. But realize if you do that, this car is never going back in the jewel case as it's set up now. You'd have to modify the case to accept the car, because the flat car housing doesn't allow for the racks to be on it. So make that choice, and whatever one you decide. Like if you're someone who's constantly breaking your trains down to go to train shows, or if your layout's not permanent and it gets tucked away, and so do your rolling stock, then maybe something like that that little tack stuff you used to put your posters up on the wall with. Maybe that would be a good solution if you don't want a permanent fix. But in any event, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to put a little bit of glue on these things, and then we're going to glue them in place and call it done. Okay, so there you have it. This is the latest offerings from MicroTrain Lines. This is their ribbon rail or welded rail train. It's in Norfolk Southern, which of course is perfect for anyone modeling NS. It's the second set that they've offered in NS maintenance of way. The first being the crew cars with the flat car and the Southern gondola, which I've shown previously. And so this being their latest offering, it's definitely a unique piece of equipment, something you're going to find on pretty much every Class 1 railroad. And if you are monitoring the modern times and have any desire to run maintenance of way, I think you're going to want to add this to your set. So now that we've got it built, the next couple of steps that we're going to take here is we've got to get the racks and the bunkers weathered. So right now this is just them, basically fixed on top of the on the cars. So I think a little bit of rust spots and some wear and tear on the location where the rail would be appropriate, especially if you're going to run the train empty. If you're going to put rail on it, I'm going to look for some options. I don't think actual flex track rail is going to be a good solution. I just don't think that you will get enough bend in it to negotiate most of the tight turns that our layouts have. If you've got some ridiculously broad sweeping curve, you might be able to get away with it, but I think in general, most of us are not going to be able to put real rail on there unless we cut it at the bend in the car, which kind of sort of defeats the purpose of welded rail. But I think you might be able to cut it and keep it close enough that it won't look bad running around the layout. But if you want to make this train for sort of a prototypical operation style, you're going to need to put full welded rail on there. So as a wrap up to this review, these are really nice cars. The flat cars are nicely weathered and detailed, and although the parts are 3D printed and it requires a bit of work from you to get them, to where they are, it's worth the effort. I do highly encourage you to do that with with an airbrush if you have it available to you. It's just going to give you a nicer coating on the pieces. And I think this is going to lead itself to some other on layout projects. So obviously they did not make the car that puts the rail on the ground. So we've got to get I've got to probably scratch build that, or find someone that's made it so I can get it 3D printed. But my guess is it's going to have to be scratch built, so that'll be an upcoming challenge. And then, like I said, trying to find something that can simulate rail on here that'll bend with the train moving. Those are going to be the upcoming tasks. Okay, this is another final offering from MicroTrains Line. So if you are in the market for some MO equipment, and especially if you're modeling NS, don't miss this opportunity.